Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome here as we prepare for the regular season finale, race number 10 on the year for the NCAA Pedrigree Xfinity Series. This is going to be the race that's going to decide the 10 drivers that make it into this season's 5-race playoffs. We've got 10 drivers that will make it, 8 drivers will get in via wins, 2 drivers will get in via points, but if we end up having less than 8 drivers get in via wins, the remaining spots available will go to the next driver's highest in points behind the top 2. So at this point in time, it looks like we've only got, I think it's 6 former winners up inside of the top 20 in the standings. You've got Kyle Thomas, 2-time winner, leading the points. Ashland Boyd currently sits second. Ryan Madden is currently in third. He's rather in 7th overall in the points. Anthony McCrury is in 10th. And currently Trent Dunham is in 18th. I think I missed somebody there. No, I didn't miss somebody there. That's it. We've only got 6 that are up there inside of the top 20 in points. So as things stand right now, 4 drivers could make their way into the playoffs via where they are in the points. Now, obviously, there are a couple of things that could take place here where a driver could make their way in via a win. Of course, a driver here today at the last minute could go to victory lane at Thornton and get their way in. A lot of drivers up there inside the top 20 in points that haven't been to victory lane yet this season, like Gallighan, Zoerlein, Yepez, Z Winkle, Sky Commons, J Shelly, S Ozkan, Skylar Perry, Quentin Moore, K Langeland, D Voyles, Justin Dearborn, Kyle Keith, Jacob Thibodeaux, N Stapleton. They're all up inside the top 20, and a win today would pretty much solidify them a spot in the playoffs. And you've got drivers that are just outside the top 20 as well that haven't won, that are anywhere from dead tied for 20th in the standings to maybe 10 points out, that easily, with a victory, could jump up into the top 20, like Andrew Miller, Anthony Lopez, Eli Bright, Dylan Poteet, Matthew Logan, Charles Jackson, Joshua Ciculli, Jimmy Dawson still got a chance. N Ormond still has a chance. So, it's not over yet as far as putting together our field. There is the opportunity for a last-minute driver to make their way into the playoff system. We've also got 3 drivers that have won races this season that are outside the top 20 in the point standings, including last week's winner from Bristol Dirt, J Figadarello. Now, Figadarello, with that win, moved from 37th to 30th in points coming into this one, and he's got a mathematical shot if he has a decent run here today to maybe make his way into the top 20 in the point standings. Coming to this one, he's 13 points out, I believe. Let me just quickly double check on that. Nope, I'm sorry, he is 17 points back behind 20th in the points coming to this one. So it's not mathematically impossible that he could make up those 17 points in this race, and in a span of 2 races, find himself from down in the bottom of the point standings up into a playoff position. But the other 2 drivers will be keeping tabs on as well that are going to try and make their way up to the top 20 in points include Corey Williams, our winner from Charlotte. He's 35th in points coming to this one. He has a total of 32 points back out of 20th in standings, so he needs a lot of help. He's almost in a must-win situation and needs a lot of the drivers ahead of him in points to struggle today. And then you've also got Phil Parker, and I think we can maybe say that he is not going to make it into the top 20 in the point standings, because coming into this one after hardships at Charlotte, he had a poor run last week at Bristol Dirt. He didn't run that well 3 weeks ago at ISM. He comes into this one currently situated a total of 41 points out of 20th in the standings. Most you can gain in a race is 47 points, so it's a must-win situation and a lot of help. Pretty much with only 1 race remaining, it's mathematically impossible that he's going to make it in the top 20 in points. So a tough break for a driver who won at Memphis on fuel strategy. Corey Williams, as we mentioned, his situation's kind of dire, but the one driver that we should keep an eye on, J Figadarello, does have a mathematical chance today, but he has to finish up there towards the front of the field. But let's now step away from focusing on the playoffs. Let's focus on today's race, because this racetrack is going to need a lot of attention. This is Thornton Raceway. For those of you that don't know, it's been a very important mainstay track here on this channel. We didn't really go here that much recently. Duracell Cup Series never went to Thornton, and that's why it's here on the Pedrigree Xfinity Series schedule, and what a track to have here for our final race of the regular season. This track is a over 14-mile road course. A lot of it takes place on highways little bit of country roads, and then it's definitely its main attraction. You'll actually see it before we go green. Just before the start-finish line, there's a hard right-hander where they cross a set of railroad tracks, and off to the left is a 40-foot drop into a quarry. We call that the Turn of Death, and will be interesting to see if any driver is going to fall victim to that here today. Hopefully not. But certainly that is always in the back of every one of these drivers' minds when they come off the final few corners. On the pole for this one, looks like it's going to be, I believe it's Trent Dunham in the 0-1. I'm trying to remember which line is the inside line here, and I'm pretty sure the inside line is actually the right side of the front row. So I think Trent's on the pole. If he isn't, then it's Jonathan Zoerlein who starts alongside of him. But they are the front row nonetheless. Obviously, both of them have their own agendas coming into this one. Jonathan Zoerlein currently comes into this race the second highest driver in the point standings without a victory. So if he doesn't win here today, he wants to make sure he's going to get into the playoffs through the point standings through the points he's accumulated this season. Trent Dunham, on the other hand, comes into this one currently 18th in the points. He is only 5 points ahead of 20th in the standings in the cut line. Our Phoenix winner wants to make sure he's going to have that win count towards a playoff spot. Then you got a number of drivers back behind them like K Langeland, Charles Jackson. They all mathematically have a shot with a victory here today to get into the playoffs. And then you've got J Figadarello. We mentioned he needs a good run here today if he's going to make up those 18 points necessary to get into the top 20 in the standings after his Bristol win last week, starting up there in the, I believe that is the 6th position, alongside of Kyle Thomas, only two-time winner this season, trying to finish out the year as best he can. He's hoping that nobody else goes to victory lane this in this race that's already been to victory lane this previous season, because then he would be up there in front in the number 1 seed, being the only two-time winner on the year. We've already gotten the command to fire up the engines, so these cars are going to be rolling off here momentarily. And as always, you can check down in the description below for today's starting lineup. So as things stand right now, if we were to look at the playoff standings currently, as mentioned, we've got only 5 drivers that are up here inside the top 20 in points with a victory. Kyle Thomas, Ashland Boyd, Ryan Madden, Anthony McCrury, and Trent Dunham, which would mean that 5 drivers would be in via points. And we'll tell you who those drivers would be in just a minute, because we're getting ready to go green as Trent Dunham and Jonathan Zoerlein. Not sure who's really the pole sitter for this one, but the green flag's in the air. Let's roll at Thornton. Down across the railroad tracks they go. And here today there are no cautions in this 3-lap event, which means that we will be showing you everything that happens to these drivers courtesy of the NNSCRA split cam if any trouble breaks out. Zoerlein to the point. Battle will be for second between K Langeland and J Figadarello. So the 5 drivers right now that currently would be in on points if things were not to change here today at Thornton would include Sean Gallighan. He's 3rd overall in the points. Jonathan Zoerlein, who's 4th overall in the standings. Diego Yepez, who's 5th. Z Winkle, who's 6th. And Sky Commons, who is currently in 8th. Gallighan and Commons, you can see back there, also had good qualifying results in the 39 and the 9. So they, along with Jonathan Zoerlein, just trying to preserve here what they can so that they can make it into the points. A little contact there. As you see, all 3 of the Flex Seal cars are JD Motorsports on that outside line. I think it was Trent Dunham and Kyle Thomas that made some contact, and Thomas going to go for the race lead. He wants to be a 3-time winner here this season. See which line prevails here. They'll head to one of the straightaways here on the highway section. This is where the draft comes into play. Drivers will be on either the left or right side of the highway, and whoever's got the most cars lined up behind him is going to get the better straightaway speed, going down to what I believe is a right-hander for the next corner. Top 3, 4, now 5 are going to be single file with Thomas, Langeland, Figadarello, and then it's Dunham and Winkle. All 3 of the JD Motorsports cars are up here inside of the top 5 early on, so they'll be able to work together. And there you see Langeland is going to get some help from JD Figadarello to get by the points leader, Kyle Thomas. Now, I believe that 3 drivers, possibly 4, come into this race locked into the playoffs already. Those three would include Kyle Thomas, Ashlyn Boyd, and Ryan Madden. They cannot mathematically fall outside of the top 20 in points here today. And they are all former winners. The question mark driver is Anthony McCrury. He is 10th in the point standings, but he is only 17 points ahead of the 20th in standings cut line. So if he suffered a DNF here today, he could very well fall outside the top 20 in the points, and his victory at Rio would not count towards a playoff position. Let's actually see if we can find him for the moment. Looking for that 12. There he is. Not that far back. I'd say unofficially somewhere around the 14th, 15th position currently in that PPG Ford Mustang out of Penske Racing. His teammate Phil Parker, who we know mathematically can pretty much not make it up into the top 20 in the point standings now, running right ahead of him, just trying to finish out the regular season as best he can. There's Gallighan, trying to make it in on points. Z Winkle there in the 4, right behind him. And Kyle Langeland up here in the 25, we should mention as well, he could possibly be a spoiler here today. Obviously, if he wins, he's up there in the top 20 in points, so he'd get into the playoffs. He's 14th in the standings, but he also not that far back from drivers like Z Winkle, Diego Yepez, Sky Commons, who, as we mentioned, could find themselves getting into the playoffs via points. He could maybe pass them and snatch away a points spot as well. This is one of the treacherous parts of the racetrack here, that steel guardrail. As Figadarello got the wall there, so did Kyle Thomas. I think someone just went off course. And now we're going to go to the TV1 camera, because there's a spot right here that's known as the turn of death, and we're going to show it to you. We're going to freeze cam off this corner, see if anyone's going to fall off the 40-foot drop. Langeland leads them around. Gallighan was close there. Looks like everybody's going to be very mindful of each other, give each other room, and doesn't look like anybody's going to fall off the turn of death this time. So nicely done by everybody to make sure that they were all going to traverse their way through that sharp right-hander. So I got to get us back now to the spectator camera, which seems to be the best camera around this racetrack. TV1 has some horrible camera angles in certain portions of the track. So Langeland to the lead. Daniel Voyles has now jumped up to second. That's another driver like Langeland, who, if he won today, could find himself in a playoff spot. He's 15th in the points coming into this one. J Figadarello right there in third. Trying to make his way into the top 20 in points. Has to make up 18 points here today. Kyle Thomas still hanging there in fourth, and Charles Jackson. Jackson comes into this one 26th in the point standings, but he's only 10 points out of 20th in the standings. So if he won today, there's no doubt in my mind he'd make up those 10 points and jump up into the top 20 in the standings. Be a little worried about that damage sustained on the right side of Figadarello's Ream Chevrolet, though. Don't know if that's going to affect him or not. Jonathan Zoerlein, who started on the front row, still hanging back here in that 10th spot. Got Sky Commons and Sean Gallighan there as well. They're at this point just trying to keep themselves up here towards the front. If they can get up there and challenge for a victory, I think they would definitely do that. But I think right now they're basically thinking about points. They want to accumulate as many points as they can here today. They don't want to suffer a DNF because the playoff position is pretty much on the line. J McCloud back here in the 23 car. Don't think he could make it into the playoffs with where he is. He comes into this one currently in 34th in points. He's down around the same area as Corey Williams. So if he were to win, he would need a lot of help to get up into the top 20 in points. Matter of fact, we haven't even seen the 51 of Williams up here even close to the top 20. So unless something happens here in these final 1.5 laps, Corey Williams will unlikely make the playoffs. Got Dylan Poteet there in the 07. Poteet coming into this one in the 24th position in points. A victory would put him into the playoffs probably. Let's drop back a little bit further here in the field. There's Matthew Logan. He could get to, if he could get to victory lane, he would probably make it into the playoffs, I would think. He's 25th in the overall standings coming to this one. Trent Dunham's faded back. be a little concerned if I were that team right now with where he's running, because remember, he came into this one just a meager 5 points ahead of the cut line. Drivers he has to at least stay ahead of would include J Thibodeaux, N Stapleton, Andrew Miller, Anthony Lopez, drivers like that. And I think he's currently ahead of all of those drivers I just mentioned, so that's at least the one good thing for him. There's Stapleton actually side by side with him for position. Ryan Madden back here in the 11. He basically solidified himself a spot in the playoffs with his good finish last week at Bristol Dirt. That moved him up to 7th overall in the standings and put him with a nice cushion ahead of the cut line. So he was able to come here into Thornton with very little to worry about. And there is Ashland Boyd in the 6th. Second in the points coming into this one, and was about 56 points ahead of the cut line. So, you know, the most you can lose in a race, 47 points. Definitely the 6th car was going to be in the playoffs. I wanted to drop back and find the 51 of Corey Williams, but he is... Well, there he is. He's in the 51, but we actually got to get back up here to the front because they're about to come around to the turn of death again. Let's bring it back to TV1, get ready for the freeze cam again. They made it around the first lap. Let's hope they can make it this second lap. And by the way, they'll be seeing the white flag this time by. It's only 3 laps at this track. As whoa, Charles Jackson is off the turn of death! And there go his playoff hopes. If he'd won here today, he probably would have been in the playoffs, but there goes his playoff hopes. I see J Thibodeaux in the 52 back there. And that spells out good news for Trent Dunham. See where some of his other competitors are. There's Thibodeaux. He just crossed in the 37th position. We have to find Lopez, Miller. I think I saw Eli Bright back here as well. There's Lopez. He's in the 28th spot. Andrew Miller, I don't see the 33, at least not right now. Let's see if he's further up here. Is that him right? No, that's not even him right there. Oh, there he is. It's on the outside of the track. Andrew Miller in the 33 had some issues. I think back on the first lap, and he's going to try and make his way back onto the racetrack here. Oh, and he just hit the steel guardrail. Well, that's another of the competitors that Trent Dunham had to worry about. And now he's got some issues. Right now, I think the only driver Trent would have to really worry about with where he's running at this moment would be the 07 of Dylan Poteet. And that's only one position he would lose. So as of right now, Trent could be safe. Is that Trent back there, actually? Oh, wow, he lost a lot more positions. It's back to 22nd. So maybe he's not in a very comfortable position right now. N Stapleton is running ahead of him now in the 42. There he is. So Stapleton, I think, passed Dunham in the points. And Dylan Poteet could very well pass Trent Dunham in the points as well. Poteet came into this race 9 points behind Trent. And there you see where he's running. So that would drop Trent currently down to 20th in the standings. So if he gets in, it might be just barely by the skin of his teeth. We're going to jump back up here to the front, though, because remember, when they crossed the line, it was the white flag. This is the final lap of this race. Kyle Langeland out in front. Daniel Voyles there in second. These two trying to make a last-minute bid to get into the playoffs, and if either of them won, they would do just that. Phil Parker trying to become a 2-time winner, but I don't think a second win would get him up into the top 20 in the points. J Figadarello, second win, I think, would definitely put him into the top 20 in the standings. Kyle Thomas now going to challenge Daniel Voyles for third as Phil Parker goes for the lead. Thomas just trying to finish out the year as best he can, trying to get a third victory on the season. Then you got J Zoerlein back here in the 00, started on the front row. With where he's running right now, looks like he would get in via points. Possibly, I don't know if he'd be the first or second driver to get in on points. Gallighan in the 39s running not too far back. They got the 48 of P Zych up here as well, although he's running way down the points, 38th in the standings. There's no way that he can make it up into the top 20 standings, even if he went to victory lane, but still, that's not going to stop him from trying to battle up here for the win. And that's basically the drivers you got up here in this lead pack. Then it's a bit of a gap back there to Sky Commons and Sean Gallighan, who both right now look like they could maybe make their way in via points, but I don't think they're going to be in the conversation for this win. So right now, The drivers that we're looking at would basically be the 25 and the 46. If Figadarello wins, he would make it into the top 20 in points. If Kyle Thomas wins, not much changes. He'd get 5 more extra bonus points towards the playoffs. Zoerlein, Commons, and Galligan right now running up there. They would, at this point, I think, make it into the playoffs via victories. Especially if a repeat winner takes place here today. If Parker wins, I think all 3 of them would be in. If Thomas wins, I think all 3 of them would be in. Now Langeland's going to try and take the lead from Phil Parker. Just a couple of corners left to go. Phil's got to get off that guardrail. He hits it. Langeland goes around the outside. Daniel Voyles there as well. Looks like it might come down between the 25 and the 46 drivers that come into this race, 14th and 15th in the standings. One of them's going to get a playoff spot. The other one might miss out on the playoffs. Phil Parker now going to challenge to the inside of Daniel Voyles for second. He might try and go for the lead here on Langeland. Can't quite do it. Voyles going to cross over. We might be having a photo finish here today. Drag race to the line. Voyles can't get enough of a run, it doesn't look like. And Kyle Langeland's going to win here at Thornton. And he's going to clinch a playoff position because of this victory. 14th in points coming into this one. 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, but now he'll have a 1 in the win column and he will be in the playoffs with this victory. We know he'll be joined by Kyle Thomas, Ashland Boyd. I think Ryan Madden will also be there. Anthony McCrury, where did he finish? Did he finish good enough to get a playoff spot? Wow, he finished way back here. Oh, he finished back in 26th. He was 10th in the standings coming to this one, so he could lose as many as 10 spots in the standings. I don't know if he's in or not. Madden finished 21st. I think that's enough for him to make it in. And the question about Trent Dunham. Where did Trent finish? 25th. That seems awfully low in the finishing results for a driver that came into this race just 5 points ahead of the 20th in the standings cut line. I think Nathan Stapleton finished ahead of him. He did. Poteet finished ahead of him. Oh man, I don't think Trent made it. Which would mean, if my calculations are correct, I think that we could have as many as either 3 or 4 drivers get in via points. Galligan finished 7th. Zoerlein finished 1 position ahead of him in 6th. I think those 2 are going to make it in via points. Sky Commons finished in 9th. We'll have to wait and see if that's going to be enough for him to maybe make it in via points. And if indeed Trent did not make it, would it be Yepez or would it be Winkle who would get the final playoff position via points? And we also don't know, did J.D. Figadarello make it up into the top 20? If he didn't make it up in the top 20, that's another driver that could maybe make it in via points. He finished 3rd. Ooh, I think J.D. might have made it. 3rd place run for the 2 car. I think that could have been enough. Well, we are going to step aside real quickly, and we will come back and show you full finishing results and also get a word of what our point standings look like and who our 10 playoff drivers are. Don't go anywhere. Kyle Langeland's your winner here today. Last minute shot clock cheese into the playoffs for the 25 car at Thornton. Alright, so as you can see here, this is 1st through 28th, and I have in front of me the new reformatted, recalculated points after today's race of who is in and who is out. So let's go down the list here and basically go with the drivers that we focused on today to see if they are in or they are out. We start first with Kyle Langeland, no doubt about it. His victory here today solidifies himself a spot in the playoffs. He jumped from 14th to 5th in the standings. So with his victory here today, he clinches a playoff position. So that's one driver that's in via wins. Let's look at the other drivers that get in via wins. J.D. Figadarello needed to pick up a total of, 18 points. He needed to jump up 9 spots in the standings at least to 20th in the standings. Believe it or not, folks, he jumped up 9 spots in the standings with a 3rd place run. He was 20th in the points to finish out this race. 3 points ahead of the cut line. J Figadarello, after his win last week at Bristol, a top 3 run here today, he is into the playoffs via wins. No doubt about it with Kyle Thomas, 2-time winner, points leader coming this race. Still will leave as the overall points leader. The points format will obviously reformat itself, so he will not be having the huge gap he had before, but he'll have 5 extra bonus points over the race winners that made it in this season, all of them only getting 1 win. But a 5th place run here today, he's in via a victory. Corey Williams, 12th here today. Didn't really talk much about him. We tried to find him. He made his way up there in the top 15 late, but Corey Williams only gained 6 spots in the standings, moving from 35th to 29th. He came up just about 24 points short of making it into the top 20 in the points. So Corey Williams, despite his win at Charlotte, he is not going to make it into the playoffs. Phil Parker finished in 4th. He jumped up 7 spots in the standings, but only up to 30th. He will not be in the playoffs. So tough break for both those drivers. Their wins will not count towards playoff positions. Drop down there to Trent Dunham. We talked about him finishing 25th. Was he able to make it? Well, he lost positions in the points to Nathan Stapleton, to Justin Dearborn, and to Dylan Poteet. It dropped him in the point standings down to the 19th position. He does manage to stay 3 points ahead of the cut line, much like J Figadarello was able to. Trent Dunham, our ISM winner, is going to make it into the playoffs as he remains in the top 20 in points. So there's 4 drivers that are going to be making it in via victories. Then we look at Ashlyn Boyd, 20th. Came into this race 56 points to the good. No doubt about it. Already locked in. That's our 5th driver to make it in via wins. And then the final driver that was able to make it in via a victory, Anthony McCrury, 26th, but he finished 14th in the point standings. He was about 11 points ahead of the 20th in standings cut line. He makes it in. So 6 drivers, I believe. Let me just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I'm sorry. No, 7 drivers, because Ryan Madden had that good run as well. Of 21st. He was already locked in with his good finish at Bristol, so 7 drivers make their way into the playoffs via victory. So that leaves 3 drivers that are able to make it in via points. Sean Galligan and J Zoerlein came into this race first and second highest in the points without a victory. Both of them got great runs here today. Zoerlein in 6th, Galligan in 7th. Both of them still will end up getting the first and second highest in points without a victory slots into the playoffs, which means since we only had a total of 7 drivers make it in via wins, that leaves 1 spot open. That 1 spot will go to the next driver highest in the point standings without a victory, and that is going to go to Sky Commons, who managed to pass Diego Yepez in the point standings by 2 points. Commons 6th, Yepez 7th. Commons finishing the day out in the 9th position. He will make it into the playoffs, and a driver who almost snatched it away from him was Daniel Voyles. Voyles was only 6 points back from Sky Commons after his runner-up finish here today, but Commons just barely going to edge him out. So the drivers that make it in via wins will be Thomas, Boyd, Langeland, Ryan Madden, Anthony McCrury, Trent Dunham, and J Figadarello. The 3 drivers that will make it in via points are Sean Galligan, J Zoerlein, and Sky Commons. So those are the 10 drivers that will battle it out here for these final 5 races on the season. Only 7 of them will make it past the 2nd playoff race, and only 4 of them will make it past the 4th playoff race heading into the season finale at Homestead. What a race here at Thornton. A short one, but definitely one that had a huge impact on our playoff standings. So, whose team are you on? Who are you rooting for? Are you on Team Kyle Thomas, Team Sean Galligan, Team J Zoerlein, Team Ashlyn Boyd, Team Kyle Langeland, Team Sky Commons, Team Ryan Madden, Team Anthony McCrury, Team Trent Dunham, or Team J Figadarello? Let us know down in the comments below. Hope you guys enjoyed today's race from Thornton. If you did, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, and become part of the crew today. We have shown you your full finisher results, and these are your point standings, and then your reformatted playoff points for the 10 drivers that made it into the postseason. Next week, we're going road course racing again. It's going to be our first playoff race, which will be at the Chatham Road Course. That one's going to be a wild one, 1.3 miles in length, and really looking forward to seeing what kind of racing that's going to bring to the table. Probably one of my all-time favorite road courses to race online, and we'll see what it does with the offline spectrum and playoff spots on the line heading into the round of 7. Until then, I've been Seth Cole. You've been watching a production of NNSCRA Offline Racing at its best.